Imam. He remains, he remains the person that we know with a pure intention, a leader, someone who has humane values up to the last moment. He showed humane values, and yeah, this is a message about how to be a human being again. Humanity or not humanity, how do you get what you want? Is it through violating your own humanity and kind of siding with the shaitan and behaving in a satanic way, or and it's really the message of how he was prepared to face that army, and to face a very grim death, for the sake of truth. So he went to the ultimate point, that you can go to. The first time I was dispatched to Iraq by the channel Ahl Bayt TV. So by that time I was aware, obviously, of Muharram and what had taken place, but it was actually, I felt fortunate to be in the company of people who, Zakers, who they've been recounting the events their whole lives. All these details of history that even from reading the books I hadn't really picked up. It's not until actually someone tells it that you say, oh right, you see how bits fit into place and events fit into place and what someone said, and that really brought home to me the necessity of visiting Imam Hussein alayhi salam in person if you can. Because I remember I came back to England and I was saying to people, you must go, you've got to go to Iraq. And they said, no, Imam Hussein is in my heart, So no, it's not the same. You've got to go there and go to the land where that took place. You've got to stand on that land where it took place. So yeah, it wasn't until going to there, you're in the land where he walked and where he was and where he fell, where his family were, that it becomes a part of you. It changes you forever, and it had a kind of effect in my life in a kind of a personal way. So you wake up in your own kind of personal way with things as well, and you develop a connection to the Imam, a kind of much more living connection. So it's not just an event that took place in history that that we remember with sadness, but you become aware of the power of the Imam. The Imam still has immense power there, and if we have the Imam as our Imam, that is something that you can't really. There's no value. There's no it's priceless. So you can't count the value of that. But that's something that we need to realize. When I go to that part of the world, I feel like I've come home. I feel home in a way that I don't in the UK, and it's been like that ever since I started to go to the Muslim world. I always felt like a lot more comfortable over there than I do here. But going there, it wasn't surreal. It was more like, if we come back to this idea of what's real, I think that we look at the reality of our lives in a secular country, day-to-day kind of living, and it's a very flat reality. It's a very flat, colourless, two-dimensional reality. And we're living in a big city, so that flat reality is kind of there's lots of stuff on sale, so it sort of hides the fact that underneath there's not a lot there. There's an emptiness underneath this busyness. So people kind of try to escape from the flat reality that we're living in over here by buying stuff, with music and entertainment, and but there is another, there's another, what I call another way of being. I feel that Islam orientates you to another way of being. It's just a different way of being from an economic, component in a secular society. There's something a lot deeper about it. And I think going to Karbala, it's like going to a location where you're coming back to, the deeper part of yourself. And I think that's why people feel at home when they go there. I can't think of anyone who has said that they felt not at home in Karbala. So I think with the presence of the Ahl Bayt, alayhim salam, there, and again, of course, everybody who's gone there at that time has gone there with the same intention. Again, it's not like being in New York, being in London, or any other city where you're mixing with people who've got all sorts of different lives, all sorts of intentions, all sorts of things on their minds. You go to Karbala, everybody has just got one intention, which is to say Labaik, Ya Hussein, and to express their love for Imam Hussein. No matter who they are, whether they can read or not read, male, female, elderly, child, they've all gone there just to say, to say thank you to Imam Hussein and to express their love for Imam Hussein in Islam. So it creates this atmosphere of definitely a different kind of a world, but that's closer to the kind of ideal world that we dream of, or a more ideal society, or a better society, let's say. And that is a moment in those 10 days in the month of Muharram where you can see the potential for what such a society could be if everybody had, their hearts open to the, to the Imam and to each other. People help each other in the street. And so it's closer to a kind of heavenly reality, And then, in fact, I remember after we had done ziyarah and to Najaf, and I remember being given some water from a well, and that was meant to have healing properties, and it's kind of sacred water. And then we came back from Iraq via Sweden, and I had the water in my rucksack, my hand luggage. So of course I forgot about not carrying liquids in your hand luggage of more than 100 milliliters. So I was going to have to get rid of this water. And then I got really upset because I felt like, oh God, I'm coming back to, this world that we live in. I'm coming back to this world of mundanity. What I find interesting is, and I suppose that strikes everyone, is the peace that you get there. And that's what strikes me, that this is a place where bloodshed took place and oppression and brutality took place. But you can go inside the haram and you can feel peace. And I was fortunate, alhamdulillah, to do ziyarah in March. And that wasn't for the channel, so I wasn't like hectic on the go. I could actually sit in the haram and reflect. And it's really kind of... in fact, I had that the last time we went as well as a team from the channel, that we would finish our program. It would be late, about 1 o'clock in the morning, and then I'd go to the haram, sit in the haram, and you just feel like you don't need anything else. You sit there, you don't need anything else. And I was thinking, how often do we feel content in our lives? I mean, Imam Ali alayhi salam, said contentment is the greatest wealth. And we know that we should feel content, and we say, thanks to Allah for all the blessings that we have. But at the same time, we've got a lot of restlessness inside us of things that, we're not happy with, or we want to adjust, or we want to improve on. And we very rarely have those moments where you say, everything's fine and I'm happy. Leading up to the tragedy, I think about Muslim ibn Aqil, who went ahead, as a representative of Imam Hussein. And I think what again strikes me about him is his solitude as well, his solitude and loneliness in this expedition. How he went ahead into a city that wasn't his city, and how he was completely betrayed as well. And how, again, he tried to remain loyal up to the end, to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And so I find that inspiring in terms of someone who loved the Imam and worked for the Imam, served the Imam, and tried to carry out his duty, to the letter without stumbling or making a mistake. And you can imagine him in the streets at night, trapped on his own. And inshallah, I hope that he knows that we are aware of what he did and what he sacrificed as well. We're often, confronted with situations where our weaknesses become apparent. And perhaps we had those weaknesses from childhood. And it's almost sometimes like default settings. You can kind of work to get better and improve yourself and improve your behavior and improve your intellectual development, but sometimes there will be something that arises that just makes you go back to square one, and start behaving or saying something or doing something that you think, I can't believe I'm still doing this, or saying this or thinking this or feeling this, and that's the difficulty. Explaining the significance of Ashura and the month of Muharram is not easy, because in the world today people have again lost the sense of the sacred, and there's something very sacred about Karbala. So it's difficult to get across that dimension of it to people who, for them, it's just like, oh, okay, grandson of the Holy Prophet died, okay. I think it requires several conversations. I mean, I remember telling one non-Muslim girl, explaining about it, that the character of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the character of the opposition, who they were, and what it represents. I think people can understand it more if you get across what it symbolizes. Because if it's a historical event that took place in Iraq, they can say, well, what's it got to do with me? Okay, how come you're identifying with that? Especially, again, people I know were thinking, well, she's from Britain. What on earth is she doing identifying with this out in Iraq? It doesn't make any sense. So if you can get across what it means in terms of human nature and what it symbolizes in terms of the whole story of humanity, with the kind of the ugliness of the oppressor, or the ugliness of oppression and tyranny, and the greatness of someone standing up to tyranny, then people can start to understand more what it's about. So I have kind of said, yes, he stood up for justice and truth, and he was meant to be standing up against oppression, and his family were massacred, and So, but I think it has to be experienced for people to really understand. I did take a friend along to a majlis once. She was a convert, but she wasn't. And it made an impact on her. Taking her to a majlis brought it alive for her. So I think it needs to be brought alive for people.